Hello, everyone. So good to see you all. Yeah, and most of you have your videos on, so I'm excited to see you. It's been a little while, it seems like. And one thing to remember for every one of you is you all are unique and you bring a unique and valuable things here tonight. So please speak up because we want to hear and learn from you. Um, we are starting with chapter 8 of The Game of Conquering. What an amazing book. Um, Chapter 8 is about the fear of missing out or FOMO. And I like the Brene Brown quote right at the beginning. FOMO lures us out of our integrity with wisps about what we could or should be doing. FOMO's favorite weapon is comparison. And so that, I didn't think, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think about FOMO as being comparison. But yeah, after he talked about it, it certainly is. And we talk about the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. So, and that, if going by what that quote is, and then going about what he talks about so much, he talks about happiness and versus unhappiness a lot in this chapter. And he, that one quote he said was unhappiness is the number one driver of FOMO. Um, so yeah, we all want happiness. How many times don't we even say that? All I want to be is I just want to be happy. And don't you want me to be happy? You hear that all the time. Um, and but yes, we are all seeking joy. But I think, in our business, I think we have to be really, really careful with the social media. He talked about that a lot in here, and how social media we have to be so careful because we try to sometimes maybe find our joy in social media. We like to, and that's where the comparison comes in because everything's better, greener on the other side of the fence with social media. And I liked the whole thing of missing out on the cruise, and it's so pertinent to what's happening right now with us. But how many of us have watched our diamonds on their diamond, and emeralds on their Hawaii trip and thinking, oh God, I don't, that's so nice for them. I wish I could be there or whatever, that almost negative thoughts, and how she gave that tough love of, hey, quit talking about it and get to work and come here, be here then. So I thought that was really good too. So I think we just gotta really, really be careful with social media. And as business owners, we have to be, yeah, we do, have social media for our business. So it's not that we can't give up social media, but I think we have to be very self-aware. And each of us maybe deals with different aspects. Maybe it's reels or, things that maybe it's time wasters for me, sometimes it had been reels. And I was talking to Janelle about this too. Like if I click on a reel, to me, that's a sin because it's wasting time. I'm not redeeming my time. So before I push that finger on that reel, that's a sin. So I had to put that on my mind that, okay, no, I'm not using my time wisely. I'm not walking in Christ's steps, like being focused and being intentional like Christ was. So I have to be really careful with that. So anyway, um, we talk about a gratitude journal. Loved how he talked about it a lot too. How his idea of going on a gratitude binge. I loved that. Listing everything you're grateful for, even when you look in your back office and in your perks report or your termination report, there's always something to be grateful for. And, even so when we go into our virtual office, I think it's great to have a piece of paper. Okay, this is what I'm grateful for if we're struggling anyway. So, um, I thought about that, how that could be like part of our monthly thing, how we can reflect on how the month went. Maybe that can be, but if we need it, maybe we need to do it more than monthly. So anyway, there's lots of material. I want to hear from you guys. And I'm ready with my pen because I write a lot in my books.
I the part about victims can be found tucked away staring at their screens. I mean I think I did that a lot more earlier on in my business, and I realized that it was not getting me anywhere. It was actually it was providing a place for me to hide out and not have to do that next hard thing that I know I need to get to, but I could still feel like I'm working in a way by like some sort of roundabout research or and it just sucks you in, and pretty soon you're a half hour into the rabbit trail and you've wasted all that time. And I can honestly say in the last several years, people will be like, oh, did you see, what's going on with so and so or whatever. I'm like, no. Well, you're on social media because they see me post. I'm like, yeah, but I take 5 minutes to maybe comment on my team members' posts, and I put up my own post and I'm out. Like I don't know what's going on with other people because it can just suck me in so much. But it's so easy to then almost feel like we're almost absorbing emotions and, like you said, living vicariously through other people to fulfill something that we're supposed to be working towards ourselves. We're completely stepping away from that and like all taking on somebody else's identity as our own, whether it's social media or binge watching Netflix or diving into, books, a book series or whatever. We are escaping. We are not stepping into like the hard thing or the purpose that we're supposed to be stepping into. And it reminded me of Ed Mylett he did a podcast, and he talked about this whole topic, and he was referring to men who specifically men who get so wrapped into their sports team. He's like, that is so stupid. It's not their sports team. They got nothing to do with it. It has no effect on their future or their family or their finances or anything. But yet they get all worked up and tied into this, and they're wearing some other man's jersey. He's like, go be a man, go fight for your own family, go work for your own family, for your own dreams, and stop trying to hop into somebody else's life and reality. I'm like, that made so much sense to me. So yeah, this is a really, really good section.
I love that, Shell. I just thought so much reading this chapter about the Gen Zers and even some of our age a little bit, but more the teens, the 20s, and why depression and anxiety and suicide rates and are all skyrocketing way more than they used to be, And I say all the time, I wish my kids could have grown up in the 80s and the 90s when I did, because what they're dealing with now with social media and comparison, it is just, it is so sad. And that's straight up what's going on is kids, people, adults are comparing themselves to other people. And what I found so interesting is what he said, that we are comparing ourselves to these people thinking that they're happy, but they're really not. They're really not. They really don't have it all. So why are we comparing to somebody who we really don't want their life, because it's really not as great as we think it is, or they make it look like it is. It's a highlight reel, right? And so I agree that getting on your socials, you have got to guard your mind. And you've got to guard what is going in here, what you're looking at, what your time is spent on, because it can be a complete waste of time. And I will fully admit, I have sat down on the couch before, and an hour later, I'm like, oh my goodness, I just spent an hour on Instagram doing nothing productive. Totally guilty of that. And I hate it. I hate it, but it really does suck you in. But what he said about victims in this FOMO category, they are not active in creating the life they desire. They want something different, but they want somebody else to give it to them. And victims are not taking action. They're sitting behind a computer, they're sitting, not taking any action. And they're so busy minding other people's business that they're not minding their own. So just think about that. How are you minding your business today, this week, tomorrow? How are you minding your business? What are you going to do going forward that's going to mind your business to move it forward, to take action, to stop the comparison game? Don't sit in that victim category. If you're feeling that a little bit, move on out and think about that, like what you can do to get out of that if you're sitting there. So.
That's so good, Sal. As I was reading this is kind of piggybacking off what you said. So you were focusing on like, not being a victim and having FOMO, but I actually, several times as I was reading this, the thought kept coming to me about other people having FOMO for us. For like, I have had a couple people, and I know more people think it that haven't said it, but a couple of people have said, well, you just have the perfect life, like, and it's just like, okay, so we have to be really intentional with our posting, with just being authentic and being like, I mean, we have to be so careful, right? Because you can't be negative. You don't want to post negative. You can't be like, oh, my day is horrible, or, my kids are awful, or like, but you still have to be real. And Brittany Howard actually had, I think it was at Ruby Retreat, some really good training on, maybe it was somewhere else, but basically on, oh yeah, it was at Ruby Retreat because Christina was going through some hard stuff. And she's like, if you would look at Christina's wall, you would not know that her life was really, really awful, but you would hear her talk about when life is hard. And then she would go on and do her post, or, and like how to retrain your mindset. And so I think that's something we need to be really careful about, is not only ourselves having FOMO, but making our lives relatable and authentic so that people don't have FOMO about us and think that, oh, those Plexus people, they're just happy and they feel good all the time and their families are perfect and blah, 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 blah. It's like, so I don't know, that just kept coming to me, like there's two ends of the spectrum here that we need to be thinking about a little bit. And then, yeah, like you said, Sal, share how you're getting through that. Like people all the time are, I mean, people know my story. I've got a lot of grief and like I've had loss, and they want to hear like those things that have helped. And so those that can be part of, my value that I add. So everybody, whether you have wayward children or, a broken marriage, or like everybody's got hard, right? So you don't want to focus on that, but you can focus on the good that came from that and how to help others through it with being real and helpful at the same time. So I just wanted to add that kind of other perspective.
I love that perspective, Janelle. I think that is very, very wise words. It's kind of like being, comparison, how we can, say comparison, oh, they have it so good. They have, like, but we can also say, oh, look at me. I'm way better than that guy. Like, so it's almost that same two-sided coin thing.
I thought this chapter was really good because I know I have suffered from FOMO in the past and maybe do some days in the present too, but it's just so good to think about, um, when you want to do something that someone else is doing, but aren't brave enough to get out there and do it yourself, that's on you. You got to think of how I can do things differently to get to where I want to be. And then a good on 106, it has a saying, it says, "It is impossible to be grateful and unhappy at the same time." So I loved that quote. So it's like if we can focus on um, the good things that we have in this life, so much more that we have in technology and what is available to us these days, but yeah, I really liked that. Just being grateful for what you have and where you are and also where you're going. So.
Very convicting chapter for sure. For me, I feel like I deal with a piece of FOMO like every single day in some aspect of my life or not. Um, there's so much underlined for me in this chapter, but just kind of piggybacking off of everything you all have said, I really highlighted we need to listen to ourselves less and talk to ourselves more. So today I got in a funk. Work was, ugh, and I was really not wanting to do the work, but I knew I wasn't getting something done because of an emergency. And yet I knew I had to get it done today, and I couldn't work my Plexus business until I got that done. Um, but I just flipped over a piece of paper, and it was some affirmations that I had written to myself probably 2 months ago. And just saying those out loud to myself flipped my attitude. And I got it all done before 5 o'clock. So that was good. And so that I could focus on the rest of my day. Got up, took a walk, came back. Okay, now what am I doing? Right. So like when he said, Lisa, you kind of quoted this already, like living a life of happiness comes from learning to be grateful for what you already have. I have a job and I'm grateful for that job. But at the same time, I was down on myself because I wasn't getting that job done, you know? So I'm like, why am I doing this? I can do this. I am extraordinary. I can get all this stuff done. So flip the script. Be grateful in the moment.
Great advice, Angie.
One thing that really hit home to me on page 108 was when he talked about victims are so focused on what others have, they are unable to bring their own life into focus. And instead, they take a back seat to the successes of others and allow their life to slowly slip by them, unknown and unhappy. It just made me visualize like these lights being dimmed. Like we all have incredible, valuable talent and gifts and light to shine on those around us. And we can get stuck in this place where it's like we're all of a sudden we're unimportant. We think we're unimportant and we're unhappy and we just shrink back. And like I said, our lights just dim. That is so very sad. And that is not that is not of the Lord. Like that is not what he wants for his children at all. And I don't know, it got me a little emotional when I read it because I'm like, that is such a sad thing. As God's children, what he calls us to be and what he's called us to do, and the immense amount of love and joy that he finds in us, like we should be shining so bright. And so it was convicting to me because I've been there too, and where life just seems very out of focus. And you kind of go through the motions and it's like things are just kind of slipping by you a little bit. And it's like, no, that's not what God wants for us. So shine your lights, people.
Yes, Shelley, and that's being a conqueror. And what Angie did too today, that was being a conqueror. You flip that switch and or that script, whatever, and that's being a conqueror. 114 conquerors are able to reframe how they see things and the story that they tell themselves. Just like you said, Angie. It's and it's biblical. How many times don't the Psalms talk about how David talked to himself? Like he's always talking to himself. Look, from where's my help come from? It comes from the Lord. He's asking himself questions. He's answering the questions. So it's it's very good to talk to ourselves instead of listen to that negative thing on that other shoulder. So. Who else has something to share?
I
I
liked
think,
how,
oh,
go ahead.
okay. I was just going to say, I think that if you find yourself in the victim mindset when it comes to the business, I think it's really important to focus on why you're doing what you're doing. Um, a lot of what I read in this chapter, I really could not relate to, quite honestly, until I got to the conqueror mindset. And I was like, yes. And it took me several years to get to that point. But when you know exactly where you want to go, um, it's easy to be in the conqueror mindset because you have that vision and you know what you want to do. So I feel like if you're finding yourself, saying, woe is me, like ask the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? Where do I want to go? Why do I want to do this? And that's what's going to drive you to keep going and get out of that, victim mindset.
And just kind of going off of that, I was going to mention how they talked about being a victim or a conqueror is a choice that we make. So if we're being the victim and falling into that, maybe without realizing it, we're making that choice by the decisions we make, the minds that we have, the attitudes we have. And if there's places we want to go, then we need to do the actions to get there. Just saying, oh, I want to go. Oh, I wish I could do that. Like that's not going to get us anywhere. Trying to find, I think it was on 13 when it said, you tell yourself that you are choosing to give up something you like for something you love even more, then the sacrifice isn't as hard. And that really stood out to me as well, because um, when, when you kind of know where you're going with it, or, hoping to go with it, then it doesn't feel so much like a sacrifice because you have to take those steps to get there. And it's just all a part of the journey. So yeah, I really like that.
That part made me think of the uh 10x, that we have to give up some in order to go 10x. That book, yeah. Did anybody do that? Make a list of your likes and loves? Or did you do it in your head? Or maybe that's got to be our homework for next week.
I liked the last part of the conquering chapter, just a little piece at the end. It said, while victims are dreaming and survivors are pretending, conquerors are working hard to make dreams a reality. And that resonated. It was like you've just got to be a conqueror in that situation, or you're going to be miserable on both sides if you're not. So just making those dreams a reality and doing the work that it takes to get it there. I do think that I talk to people that think it's supposed to be easy. Why would you do this if it was so hard? And I said, because it's not about me, and it's anything worth having is going to take some effort.
So that's just
So true, Gina. Yeah. And yeah, we know that conquer the whole every chapter we read, we think of the verse, we are more than conquerors through Christ. So we all here know that it's Christ who gets us past that FOMO, past that comparison, with prayer, with asking for God's grace, and yeah, we can't. I can do all things through Christ, So, and I'm sure everybody agrees with that. But anyone else want to share? Well, I thought that last paragraph was so good too about, change your focus, change your business. So, this book is about network marketing. So, and that's why we're here. We're here. So for the business, change your focus, change your business, change your focus, change your life. So this, that's where the legacy part comes in. When we talk about this being a legacy business, it can change our life, but the lives of our children, grandchildren, whatever. So stop looking at the green grass on the other side and start watering your own lawn, because in the fear of missing out, it's your own life you are missing out on. So it's so good. All right. I'll stop the recording and we will see you next week, right? I think so. Chapter 9. Thank you, everybody.